All right, from South Africa we go to Japan, where a prominent public health expert has warned that the so-called bio-bubble to control COVID-19 infections at the Tokyo Olympic Games Athletes Village in Tokyo has been breached. The former director of the Institute for Population Health at King's College in London, Kenji Shibuya, says that this poses a risk of spreading infections to the general population. However, Shibuya has been contradicted by athletes and the advisor to the International Olympic Committee, who says that countermeasures will ensure the safety of everyone. Tokyo Olympic Games officially reported the first COVID-19 case amongst competitors in the Athletes Village in Tokyo on Sunday, where 11,000 athletes are expected to stay. Since July the 2nd, Tokyo 2020 organisers have reported more than 60 positive cases amongst athletes, officials and journalists. For the latest on the Olympics, we're now joined by our correspondent, John Matthews. Hello, John. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. This isn't great news for the Olympics organisers, who've tried their best to make this bubble feel real and safe.
Well, this isn't really, we have already heard reports that these athletes and delegations have been mixing in with general travelers, either on airplanes if it's a smaller delegation, or for larger ones, just even in the airport as volunteers try to frantically pick out athletes from crowds. So it's already sort of in the awareness the bubble is not fully functioning, or it isn't fully separating delegations from the general population. So this is sort of capping off the awareness everyone already has with an official comment.
So once you leave the airport, you get transported to various places. What happens when you get inside the village complex? Is it impossible to leave? How is it that they keep this bubble together? How does it work?
Well, the athletes aren't actually tracked nearly as much as you might think. Of course, Mr. Shibuya has said the same thing, more or less. You are taken to private transport, you're taken to your accommodations or training camps. Many of these athletes aren't going straight to the village. They're going to, the cyclists are going to Gotemba, a gorgeous place near the coast. You can see Fuji from the other side of the coast there. Once they come to the village, though, it's a cramped experience. Quite a few people to one room, to one suite. Few toilets. Some teams have complained about it, but you can get out, travel around, take a walk to your nearest convenience store. We have a lot of them here. They're pretty great. So it's not as strict once the initial sort of quarantine and stay periods are over.
So we understand the Ugandan weightlifter who went missing for a few days has been found. Where did he go, and what did the Japanese authorities and the IOC do with him?
Well, he was found, I believe it was 4 days on the lam. He met up with someone he apparently had known in Japan beforehand in a nearby area. He was in Osaka. He went to the nearby Mie prefecture. Apparently, he had left a note in the accommodations that he wanted to live and work in Japan. Now, it's not quite sure how he was going to achieve that without forged papers. But aside from that, not entirely sure what the plan was, but authorities just have taken him into protective custody, I believe is the official term. He's under arrest. The IOC and the Japanese side of the committees have said they want to have a talk with him directly and figure out what actually happened and then make a choice as to what to do with him.
All right. I mean, it's quite unusual. It reminds me of a story, actually. Footballers who had gone to play in England from Zimbabwe at one stage, at half-time, they disappeared. No one could find them. But anyway, public opposition to the Games is still growing, and areas around Tokyo are still under a state of emergency, plus big sponsors like Toyota are pulling out. And we're hearing that one official wouldn't rule out a cancellation. Is there any chance that these games will be delayed or cancelled at this late stage?
Very unlikely. That comment's going around quite a lot recently. It's being attributed to the Tokyo 2020 Games CEO. He was asked point blank, "What is the scenario that will trigger postponement or cancellation?" And what he said really was, "It's probably not going to happen in a longer form. He said, we'll watch the situation as it unfolds. We'll make the choices as things develop. Infections could improve. They could decline. If a spike happens, we'll think about what to do. But in essence, with 2 days away, excuse me, now 2 days away, yes, it's the overnight, then yes, we're not going to be seeing much of a chance of any cancellation or postponement of the Olympic Games.
So reports are suggesting that 70 COVID-19 cases are connected to the Olympics in Japan, with more athletes and delegation members testing positive in Tokyo. What will happen to athletes who've tested positive, and what's the mood amongst them at the moment?
Well, it's a bit of a divide, actually. If you are testing positive before you leave for Japan, you are, I believe, under uniform rules, not allowed to come into Japan or to compete. Now, once you arrive, it's a bit of a different story. If you test positive, firstly, we have had several positive tests and names have not been released. These athletes who have tested positive can still compete if they test negative 6 hours before their competition. So there is still hope on that front. Now, if someone has to drop out, we'll find out who they are, because they'll be dropped from the roster and there'll be an announcement. Until then, it's medical confidentiality and we don't know who they are. But for the moment, in terms of the mood, as you asked, excitement for being in Japan is certainly one thing. Being in this new environment and being around lots of other elite athletes is there. But there is also a sense of sort of a dampening field around the energy. The Olympics here, as you may have surmised, is quite a strange one in terms of the atmosphere overall. Self-service medals, you name it. Lots has changed since Rio, and yeah, it's a dampened excitement, I would say, is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all pretty surreal, isn't it? And you know, for people who were saying that these games should be cancelled, I remember Lord Seb Coe saying that at any given games, 80% of the athletes there are there one time only. And, you know, age and peak performance, it all sort of happens once in a lifetime for many of them. So for some of them, this has to happen because they'll never get another chance. I guess that's part of the drama.
Well, it's the only chance for many of them, but then that chance has been taken away from many who have tested positive even before they got a chance to get on a plane and come to Tokyo. So yeah, some of them have lost that chance. They can perform, of course, in other competitions, but the Olympics, that could be it for them.
All right. John Matthews, thanks very much indeed, and stay safe out there.